Google just dropped a big update to NotebookLM, and it made an already powerful tool even better. And if you've never used NotebookLM, it really solves two main use cases. First is making sense of complex information, so basically analysis and insight. And second is accelerating learning and training. And in this video, I'll show you how to use the new updates to generate videos that explain your research, break it down into digestible pieces, and even create a podcast that you can interact with. And by the end of this video, you will have mastered 90% of NotebookLM. I'm Ali Salim. I currently work as a director in a tech company. And on this channel, I'll help you turn tech and finance into your personal advantage. All right, so this is NotebookLM, and if it feels overwhelming, don't worry about it. I promise you it's super easy. And even if it does feel like there's a lot of things you can click at, I'll break it down for you so that you feel the same way as I do. The first thing I like to start with is changing the coloring of the UI. I always feel like this is much easier to work with. So if you want to kick things off, all you need to do is click on this Create New button here. And this will bring you into a view where you can add sources. And we'll get to that in a second, but for now you can just close down the view and you will see the user interface that is kind of the standard workbook interface. Again, if you feel like there's a lot of things to click here, don't worry about it. Think of this as three separate sections. So on the left-hand side here, you have the sources that you will do your research on. And the middle section is where you will interact with the data. It is very similar to what you are probably very used to doing already. You're just prompting against a set of associated data sources. And the last thing that you can do is use all of these tools that you can see on the right-hand side here. And we're gonna go through it all. It's gonna feel super simple at the end of this. So before starting to add all the sources, what I like to do is just get the sanitary stuff out of the way. Let's call out what we're actually doing. And for this episode, we're gonna talk about something I'm crazy about, which is coffee. I'm a huge coffee nerd, like unhealthy obsession. So let's denote this workbook as coffee research. Now, from here, you could click the add button and it's gonna bring you back to the same view as you had before. And really there are three ways that you can attach data here. The first is you have this drag and drop option to dump your files. And you can see the eligible file formats here at the bottom. The second thing you can do is you could connect to your Google Drive and leverage files that you have stored there. The third option you have, and this is the one we're gonna use mostly today, is either websites where you're essentially asking NotebookLM to scrape the URL that you attach, and you can also give it YouTube URLs and it will transcribe the video and pull out the relevant information. And the last option you have is basically do a text dump. So let's actually go ahead and find us some sources. So if you're gonna take a YouTube video, all you need to do is basically click the video. And I've obviously watched this before, so what you could do is just remove the timing association and you can just pick up the URL and then drop it into the YouTube cell here. So there we go. We have our first link. Let me add a few more. Okay, so we have our three YouTube video URLs that I've selected. I deliberately picked three videos that were quite long. I mean, I think all of them were north of 30 minutes. And now what we could do is ask ChatGPT to do some web scraping, find us a couple of URLs that come from credible resources, give it to us in a copy-friendly format, and we can dump them in here as well. And because I come prepared, it seems like I've already done my homework here. Let me just pick up these links. And let's go back. You could click add. And when you select website, you can just dump all of them in here. Very convenient. And here we go. And as you can see, sometimes when you use ChatGPT to run web scraping on whichever topic that you're researching and find used sources, you can end up with these kind of corrupt links that just doesn't work. And that's okay. You can leave them in there, or you can take them out like this if you feel like it. Because I have like a minor OCD is what I've learned now when I've gotten older. I'm probably gonna take them out. But that essentially gives us a pretty nice set of data points that we could use. And you can see that right next to the data points here, you could select which data you want to include when you run your research and which ones you want to exclude. We'll get to that in a second, but first I want to show you one more way that you can add resources in addition to these 4 approaches that are outlined on the Add Sources UI here. And that is through something called Discover, which is the only other button that you have on the sources. What this allows you to do is basically give it a prompt on what it should go fetch additional links for. So let's say that we want to know more about coffee production process. Yeah. If we click submit here, it's going to run a Google search query and bring us back all the links that it finds useful for us. And we can decide whether we want to import them in our source model or not. So as you can see, brought back quite a few. And because I'm not a picky guy at this point, I'll just import all 10. Now, there are a few things that are good to know when it comes to the prompting in this view. First is that the most recent update gave it a pretty hefty under the hood improvement. So the whole NotebookLM environment is now powered by Gemini 2.5 Flash, which is a pretty good upgrade from what it had before. And the second thing to be aware of is probably quite different to all the other AI products that you've used. NotebookLM is tuned to hallucinate close to 0. It will basically only give you back the information from the sources that you have attached, making this an excellent tool for things like analysis, insight. If you have repetitive tasks that you're going to pull from the same set of sources over and over, and you just want a quick way to pull out the information that you need, this is your go-to place. It, of course, also makes it amazing for things like learning. If you're trying to learn a new language, I think they added up to 80 new languages in here. You could go back and forth with all the tools that we have on the side. We'll get there later. But it got a significant under the hood upgrade. But anyways, I'll stop rambling. Let's see how this actually works. Honestly, it's not much harder than just prompting what you need. So let's ask something as simple as, what are the main types of processing techniques used in coffee production? And there we go. When it comes to the prompting, there are really 3 things that are important for you to know of. The first is, if you are looking at any of the information here, you'll see that it has actually linked to where it pulled the information from. So if you click this, it will actually take you to the source. This makes it super easy to kind of cross-check the information that it gives you, in case you did like I did now, which is kind of just dump a bunch of random sources in. Now is the time to check that those sources were valid in case you are planning to use this information. The second thing you probably reacted to with our response here is that it's pretty overwhelming. It brings you quite a lot of information. And this brings me to the second thing that is really good to be aware of, which is a new upgrade. If you go up to the filtering button here, you can now decide how you want the LLM, or rather NotebookLM as an app, to interact with you. So if you have a certain conversational style that you prefer, let's say that you're doing this for learning, then you can of course toggle that into learning. But let's say that you're going to use this for corporate purposes, perhaps tune it towards more financial or technical lingo. This is where you can now instruct the LLM how you want it to interact with you. The second thing that you can do here is that you can decide on the response length. Now, for me, I just want to get to the point. So I tend to go with the shorter responses. But if you are, let's say, working in academia and you need to have a longer explanation and do the synthesis yourself, or perhaps just get that deeper level understanding, then you can toggle that here as well. And once you've selected your configuration, you can just click save. And if we literally ask the same question now, it's going to be significantly shorter. So let's just take this, dump it in, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so here we go. And we can see that it still contains quite a lot of text, but in comparison, so here's the cutoff. In comparison, it did reduce it quite significantly. Now, if you want to reduce it further from here, you kind of have two ways of doing that. First is you can toggle the number of sources. If you dump a bunch of sources, then you're going to get a more comprehensive answer. You reduce it, you're going to get a more concise and precise answer. The second thing you can do is prompt it to be more concise, and it will tune down the response back to you. Now, the last thing I want you to be aware of in terms of the chat functionality is that once you come back to this chat, let's say you close down this browser and you open the same workbook again, your chat will be gone. The reason why that happens is because Google does not store this information. It does not train the LLM on this information, and that is intentional. They call it privacy by design. But here's the thing. If you find anything in the chat here that you think is extremely important or something that you want to save for the future, you have the ability to kind of pin it down here at the bottom. So if you click the save to note, then it will store it for the future. So if you come back to the same workbook later, then you will have the same answer. And that's it. So to summarize the chat, the things that you need to be aware of is you prompt in the chat as normal. You can tune the model using the configure capabilities. And third is remember to pin information that you find important. Quick pause. I have a favor to ask. If you're enjoying the episode so far, you should consider becoming a part of the small but very exclusive group of around 5% of viewers that have subscribed. And if you've already subscribed, I just want to say thank you. You're the reason why this channel keeps growing and keeps getting better. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the coolest things that you can do in here. I can't really decide which one I want to start with. You know what we can do? Let's trigger two of them at the same time because it takes a little while for them to generate. So let's both create a video and create a podcast. And what you can see is that it starts loading for you at the bottom and it tells you to come back in a few minutes. So that's my cue. Let's get some of that coffee on it. Okay, cool. So we can see that at least the podcast, or the audio overview as it's called here, has finished generating. Now, you have two options. You could either just click play and listen to a podcast on the topic that you have all your sources associated to, or you can tag team with them. So obviously, we're gonna tag team.
That moment, you know, the perfect cup of coffee, the one with those specific notes described right there on the bag. It feels simple.
Yeah, like a daily ritual.
Exactly, but that single sip, it's actually the end point of this pretty solid sources.
Yeah, we've got
So let's join in with them.
focusing on
Coffee yields in Indonesia, specific. Oh wait, someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
I heard that they drink coffee with chili in Africa. Is that true?
Oh, that's a fascinating question about coffee consumption.
You're touching on something really important, the cultural side of coffee.
While our deep dive today focuses more on the production side, the
Specific traditional.
Oh, go for it.
I feel like you guys ignored my question. Are they drinking coffee with chili in Africa? Yes or no?
We truly apologize for not giving you a definitive answer right away.
You are absolutely right to call us out on that.
Let's give you
I
a very
forgive
direct
you.
answer based on what we've learned.
Okay, here's the nuance.
Yes, coffee, as the plant, is often consumed in a savory food preparation in Ethiopia.
And sometimes that preparation includes chili or ginger.
But this is a traditional whole plant consumption, often crushed fruits or leaves.
It's a savory food, not the brewed beverage.
That is the way you can interact with the audio. I think it's really cool, and it brings this element of digesting information about the research that you're doing at your own pace. So, while we were debating chili in the coffee, our video finished rendering. So we could take a look at how that looks.
You know that perfect cup of coffee? For so many of us, it's just how the day begins. It's warm, it's familiar, it's a simple little ritual. But what if I told you that simple cup is actually it's the core of what's called the circular economy. So what exactly is a circular economy? Impossible for farmers to plan for the future, let alone invest in the kind of sustainable and regenerative practice.
So it is not like a VO3 video. It's more like watching a work presentation about the topic. But it's still pretty cool if you like this type of medium to consume your research. Let's take a look at what else we can do in here. I particularly like mind map. And actually, we had a good habit of triggering two activities at the same time. So let's do reports at the same time. So I just click reports. Here you can kind of decide what type of report that you would like. So you could either use one of the pre-made ones, or you can create your own, giving it specific instructions on what you need. When I use this, I typically default into this briefing doc, which essentially just summarizes or synthesizes the information into a condensed report that you could just consume really quick. So let's trigger that. Let's take a look at how that report actually looks. And as you can see, it has given you a summary in a condensed format, starting off with executive summary. You can read through the most important points, the key takeaways, and then you can go into further detail. This is a very, very common communication practice in consulting. They have ingrained it in NotebookLM. And as you can see, because we had so many sources, it has given a quite comprehensive report. Now, on the topic of top-down communication, let's shift gear into the mind map. Also, one of my favorite topics. So this will bring you into a view where it structures up the main topics in categories for you, and then you can continue breaking it down interactively. Let's say that you want to learn more about circular economy fundamentals. You can continue breaking that down into definitions, principles, the R hierarchy, etc. Let's look at that. It sounds cool. And you can continue segmenting it down until you reach the leaf level node. And if you click one of the leaf level nodes, as I just did, it will start compiling up information around that topic, allowing you to kind of jump interactively back and forth between this overview and the deep dive into the topics that you want to look at. What I'm a little bit surprised about here is that it didn't go that much into the details of the processing of coffee itself. It looks more like it took a sustainability approach, which is good as well. And sometimes it can do that. What tends to help if you see this output is to steer the sources a little bit. So if you take tons and tons of sources and most of them are pointing towards, let's say, a sustainability focus, then you will tend to see this type of information show up as well. So this could be a bias that is driven off of a certain set of data sources that we've compiled into the source section. Now, the last two tools on the right-hand side is really focused on learning, but they're really cool. So let's go ahead and trigger both. We can start off with flashcards. What is the primary benefit of agroforestry coffee systems in suboptimal environmental conditions? Well, if you don't know that, then you didn't listen. I have no idea. Let's just check the answer. Okay, so you get the point. You get a flashcard and you try to figure out what the answer is. When you want to see the answer, you click the card, and then you go to the next one. And you can continue going around and around until you are proficient in whatever you're trying to learn. Amazing. Quiz works in a similar fashion. You're basically going to get a question and you get to select between multiple options. So let's see what this is. In the washed coffee processing method, what is the primary purpose of the fermentation stage? Fermented coffee. I'm crazy, I really like it, so I wish I could say that I knew this top of mind, but let's see here. What are the options? Honestly, I have no idea. I ferment stuff all the time, but I have no idea which of these answers are correct, but I guess D. Let's try. Ha, look at that. I was just trying to see if you guys knew the answer. Okay, so you get the point that you can use these quizzes to test your skills within whatever you're trying to learn as well. So circling back to what we talked about in the beginning, hopefully you can now see that the two main use cases that NotebookLM is amazing for is one, if you are analyzing and want to draw insights from a large amount of data. It works particularly well if you keep circling back to the same set of data or same set of links, so you can build a workflow around this, but you can of course do it from scratch every single time. And the second use case that it does really, really well is learning. So if you're trying to learn, you have a gazillion tools at your disposal to make that an enjoyable experience. Thank you for trusting me with your time. I hope it was both insightful, that you learned something, and hopefully also a little bit enjoyable. And if you're interested in becoming proficient in Google's AI ecosystem, I think that you are gonna love this video. It breaks down Google's Gen AI leadership course from north of 8 hours to around 20 minutes. And on top of it, it also outlines how you can pass Google's official certification exam in case you're interested in that. So thanks again for this time. And, or is it? Don't forget to abuse your powers as a grown human being and drink coffee whenever you feel like it. I'll see you in the next one.